The Gambia's Transport Union blames traffic congestion on lack of car parks as government remains silent on the issue. IMF urges fiscal deficit control despite demands of protesters in Tunisia. The South Sudan government launches petroleum sector audit to enable effective transparency in the country's energy sector. These and more coming on the world today. Stay with us. Honey. Good evening, viewers. You're watching the World Newscast. I am Sohna Tunkara, and now to our news in detail. The Gambia Transport Union said lack of standard garages and car parks have caused major traffic congestions in the country as the government remains silent on the matter. Omar Sisi, president of the union, said despite slow response from the government, talks are being held to establish standard car parks that could ease the transportation challenges facing the country. Here is more of that in this report.
As small and narrow the country's roads are, vehicles and cars could be seen parked on highways, thereby causing uncomfortable conditions to both pedestrians and other vehicles. Most of the country's garages in most cases are attached to compounds. The polluted air, toxic fumes and other chemicals can find their way into people's houses. These pose a great danger to the occupants. It can also potentially affect their health. Omar Sise, president of the Gambia Transport Union, says lack of proper traffic management and people's attitude are key challenges that causes traffic congestion.
Unfortunate, Gambia over 56 years old, since independent up to date, we cannot have a proper garage. We are talking about the land issue, but that's getting, problem both day and night. But I think you remember last year on June 22nd, we went to sit-down strike. Garage is part of our demands. After the sit-down strike, we sit with the government, with the necessary stakeholders like KMC councils, and the central government, priority to the government to see how to promote the free movement. Transport is the wheel of the economy. These are all challengeable issues. So, but it's very just unfortunate. We are here in the project from government, but still, this car park issue, government is deaf on this.
Caesar accused the government of turning a deaf ear to the issues of the garage. He recalled that access to proper garages was part of their demands during the union's last year's sit-down strike.
Transport is the most challengeable issue so that for our daily livings. Because by right, if you want to go to Brickham, you're going to spend less. It's less than 30 kilometers. You go for 2 hours, less than 30 kilometers. This is alarming. The vehicle are getting increasing. We don't have regulation. The traffic management is very poor. This is clear fact. It's very poor. People can park anywhere they like. The vendors can sell anywhere they want. So end of the day, what we expect more traffic congestion. The fuel is increasing. So drivers, they're businessmen, they're looking for profit. And
not only the union, but drivers and the Gambian society have described the lack of structural garages and standard car parks as challenging and frustrating. They therefore called for proper actions to be taken in order to ease their movement and further avoid preventable road accidents, among others. Reporting for iAfrica News, this is Mariama Cham.
The Gambia continues to face traffic congestions as there are inadequate car parks in the country. Now, Ibrahim Jawara Demba, a former inspector at Bara Police Station, testified at the Truth Commission on the issue of the West African migrants on Thursday. And according to Mr. Demba, the IGP instructed Babukar Bah to transfer the records of the old diary, which contains the information of the West African migrants, to a new diary leaving out the information of the migrants. Abindao files in this report.
Ibrahim Jawara Demba, an assistant commissioner of police, tells the Truth Commission how he got to know about the migrants in 2005 when he was an inspector at the Bara police station. The witness says Bubakar Ba told him that he was instructed by the ex-IGP to transfer the records of the old diary to a new diary.
One day I received a call from my commissioner, one Babukar Ba, to report to the office of the Inspector General of Police.
Who was this commissioner?
Jiba, Usman Jiba.
Usman Jiba.
Then he came back.
What? Who came back?
Bubakar Ba.
Did you advise him of the message you received?
Yes, Council, I advised him the message I received.
Did he go to respond to answer to the IGP?
Yes, Council, he went to answer to the IGP.
Wow, Council, IGP. And who was IGP at the time?
It was Usman Sonko.
Usman Sonko. And then what happened?
Then he went. He came back. He told me that the Inspector General of Police asked him,
Inspector General of Police let
him transfer the old diary to the new diary.
Na dal di sotte de ko na liñ bindon ci diary bu maget bi ci diary bu es.
I said once he gave that instruction,
Mané ko gom ka jox na la ndigal bobu.
I think the instruction should have come through the commissioner to me.
Yaakar na ne ndigal bobu wara na jaare ci commissioner bi ñew ci man.
Once it's come direct from you,
waaye nag comme que ñëw na rek ci yow,
go ahead with his order.
The Assistant Commissioner also told the Commission that he supervised the transfer of the records of the new diary, excluding the information of the West African migrants.
All he said to transfer the old one, this one, to the new diary. He knows what he was told by the minister.
And he told you. He told you. And you supervised that work. You supervised him.
Yes, I supervised him.
Exactly. And you supervised him to transfer the information from the old diary to the new diary, excluding the information about the Ghanaians.
It was instruction he was given by the IGP.
You know that, don't you?
Yes, as he told me.
But you've held us here 10 minutes telling us you did not know that.
The witness informs the Commission that he was later told by Boubacar Ba that he handed over the old diary of the station to the then IGP Usman Sonko. The Truth Commission had testimonies from different witnesses that the migrants were arrested by security personnel at the coastal settlement of Bara before they were transported to Banjul. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
From that report by Amin Dao, we move on to Tunisia. At the time of unprecedented violence protests that have hit Tunisia in recent days, the country's economy is in hardship as its fiscal deficit could exceed 9% of gross domestic product. The International Monetary Fund has warned the North African country to control energy subsidies, transfers to state companies and wages, even as protesters demand jobs and economic developments. Details of that in this report.
Tunisia is facing a delicate balance to balance its finances amid a worsening political crisis. The North African state has run its government for years with a high fiscal deficit that rose to 11.5% of GDP in 2020. Its 2021 budget forecasts borrowing needs at $7.2 billion, including about $5 billion in foreign loans. The country's economy and finance minister has, however, assured that the state is implementing reforms to reduce the public sector wage bill that rose to 17.6% of GDP and which is among the highest in the world.
This government is aware of the challenges that we are facing. Among the challenges is the salary mass. We are going to work on state salary mass to find solution to make it acceptable for the state budget.
The Washington-based lender has also recommended that the government push for achieving a low and stable inflation. The fund's experts urged the Central Bank of Tunisia to avoid any monetary financing of the budget deficit, allow the exchange rate to adjust to market developments, and continue to monitor the financial sector for signs of borrower distress and bad debts.
We are going to revamp the system and to try to make it more efficient and to try to really support the people of low and medium income to address the difficult situation they are facing. In the same time, we believe that with what we are living with the pandemic and COVID has hit us badly, not only Tunisia but the world, the government is here to support as well the companies to enable us to be strong.
The fund called for a broader social dialogue in Tunisia and urged the creation of a national structure to manage ailing public enterprises. Accordingly, the social dialogue would pave the way for undertaking recommended economic and social reforms.
Without dialogue and a real roadmap, this critical situation could worsen further and affect the social and economic levels. Reforms are needed urgently, but we have not seen any serious attempts or concrete projects by successive governments. Tunisian authorities are very slow in taking decisions.
IMF officials explained that the current government needs to engage in a national dialogue with all stakeholders to make sure the Tunisian society endorses proposed reforms and thus secure their implementation. The IMF also recommends that the Tunisian authorities redouble their efforts to advance good governance and transparency, as well as in the fight against corruption. Experts assert that making progress in these areas will attract investment and support growth and job creation.
The North African country Tunisia's economy is in hardship, and the IMF urges for the country to control its fiscal deficit. Now, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of the Gambia yesterday presents its quarterly review of economic and financial developments. As part of their mandate, the governor of Central Bank, Bouassedi, gave intense review of the report and outlined policy decisions to be considered on various key economic indicators. With the advent of the global pandemic, the IMF, in its January 2021 World Economic Outlook, estimates a global contraction for 2020 at 3.5%, 0.9% higher than projected in the previous forecast. Governor Saidi says this reflects a stronger momentum in the second half of 2020 as countries adjust to the pandemic through medical interventions and policy support measures. Focusing on price development, consumer price inflation elevated in January 2021 on account of increase in oil and food components.
Headline inflation rose to 7.6% in January 2021 from 5.7% in December 2020 and by 0.2 percentage points from a year ago. Food inflation increased to 9.1% in January 2021 from 8.1% in the corresponding period in 2020. The rise in food prices is explained by the increase in all subcomponents of the food basket, except for a few.
Concerns over the hike in price of commodities, mainly food, is associated with the increase in taxation. Governor Sedi says tax increment does not affect the pricing system.
Government increased taxes, and that's why prices have gone up. This is not accurate. Price increase, the tax increase has nothing to do with the increase in prices. And in the Gambia, the major commodities which cause the increase in prices, for instance, rice, is zero tax. So it's not because of the tax increase that is resulting to the increase in price. A part of the increase in commodity prices, like I said, is structural. And that is being addressed by the government in trying to improve the efficiency of the port.
Part of the committee's observation on key economic indicators reveals a projected recovery for this year, despite the devastating impact of COVID.
The central bank's composite index of economic activity, which is a high-frequency measure of the level of activity in the economy, shows that economic activity contracted in 2020 and is expected to recover in 2021. Furthermore, the slowdown in economic activity resulted in a significant decline in private sector credit. However, fiscal and monetary policy interventions to the pandemic have mitigated the impact of the crisis on the economy.
The governor highlights 9 key economic indicators. Among them are global economic outlook, banking sector developments, domestic debt development, monetary and price developments. The report indicates that appropriate policy decisions are taken to maintain the policy rate, the required reserve, and the interest rates on the standing deposit facility at 10, 13, and 2.5% respectively. For iAfrican News, Sohna Tunkara. From that report, we will now go with a short commercial break and the news continues. Stay with us.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back. If you're just joining in, this is the World Newscast, and to the rest of our stories. The Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violation Thursday holds a press briefing regarding the execution of some West African migrants in July 2005. Speaking at the meeting, the victims urged the government of the Gambia to bring the perpetrators of this hideous crime to justice.
The Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations, established in 2017, brings together victims whose rights were violated under the 22-year rule of former President Jammeh. The organization holds a press briefing on Thursday, which was centered on the killings of over 50 West African migrants. The sole survivor of that massacre, Martin Carey, says the TRRC is expected to present perpetrators before a competent court.
So now, through Jammeh to Justice campaign, we have been have access to present our case in TRC. And I hope the time I came to Gambia, the way people have confidence in TRC, the way people believe TRC, even not in Ghana, in Gambia here, Ghana. When you ask the foreign ministers, any authorities, oh, the TRC is working. The TRC is working. So I hope the fate of the victims, the fate of future Gambia depends on the recommendation that the TRC will make. And they are not expecting any recommendation, but rather seeing perpetrators brought before courts of competence so that justice must be served.
Kehinde Enagami, a Nigerian whose brother was part of the West African migrants murdered in the Gambia, says in order to heal the pain they experience, there must be justice first before any reconciliation.
Yesterday here, I was in the company of Mr. Mnyaku and Mr. Martin. We went to see these ECOMIG offices. And something struck me. These were Ghanaians sacrificing their comfort, their safety to come to the Gambia to ensure the stability, peace of life and property, safety of life and property in the Gambia. Irrespective of the fact that their countrymen, fellow countrymen were brutally killed, that did not stop them. So what that tells me is that as Africans, we are one. What happened in the Gambia was terrible as it seems. But the truth is, for us to have healing, for us to be able to overcome this, there must be justice. There must be justice, because without justice, there won't be any reconciliation.
National Human Rights Commission's chairman, Emmanuel Diouf, says the commission will take a prominent position in the human rights violations to make sure justice is prevailed.
We are all awaiting the recommendations of the TRRC. I'm sure they're winding up soon. In June, I was told. But the National Human Rights Commission will be at the forefront to monitor the implementation of its recommendation. And I want to assure you that we will take a prominent place, a prominent position in this process to make sure that justice is done in this country. There has been victims. Gambians have been victims. We have children of victims here. We have those who are victims. We have the victims, the Ghanaians who are victims, the Nigerians, among others. And we cannot allow impunity to reign in our country.
The Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations serves as an advocacy platform and engages the government, local and international stakeholders with the aim of addressing human rights violations. The organization has registered over 1,000 victims in the country and has more than 14 vocal points across the country. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
Victims and families of the 2005 massacre holds a press conference and they are seeking for justice. Now the South Sudan government launches petroleum sector audit to enable effective transparency in the country's energy sector. The company is expected to carry out audit on financial transactions and technology used for a period of 8 years from 2011 to 2019. And private sector companies that are engaged in the oil and gas business will also be inclusive in the auditing process. And according to the government, this move is taken to expose hidden actions and set records straight.
South Sudan's government says the company will carry out audits on financial transactions and technology used in the oil fields. South Sudan's Oil and Gas Commission says the audit will cover an 8-year period from 2011 to 2019. South Sudan's government says the audit will also examine how effective the private sector has been in the oil and gas industry. The audit is the first of its kind in South Sudan. South Sudan's Petroleum Commission says the independent audit will help expose several hidden issues in the oil sector, including details of sales, exports, and diseases potentially caused by the oil pollution. The government says the auditing team will also be seeking information from Sudan.
We are going to have another meeting in Khartoum so that we continue to bring the gaps that are there so that we secure the flow of oil in a very environmental manner and in a very economic manner.
The United Nations Security Council last month appointed 5 experts to get financial information from oil companies operating in South Sudan. The law in South Sudan provides for quarterly and yearly financial reports from the Petroleum Ministry as well as oil companies, but no information has been availed to the public on oil revenues and expenditures since the country gained independence in 2011.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, has called on security forces in Myanmar to end the vicious killing of peaceful protesters as the military continue its brutal crackdown across the country, leading to numerous deaths and arrests of civilians. More in this report.
Following recent clashes between protesters and security forces in Myanmar, the UN Human Rights Agency urges Myanmar's military to stop killing and jailing protesters, stating that it is totally discordant for security forces to fire live rounds at peaceful protesters.
The UN Human Rights Office has corroborated information that at least 54 people have been killed by police and military officers since the 1st of February coup. The actual death toll, however, could be much higher, as these are the figures the office has been able to verify. Of the 54 cases, at least 30 people were killed in Yangon, Mandalay, Sagaing, Magwe, and Mon by security forces on Wednesday alone. Another person was documented to have been killed on Tuesday, and 18 people on Sunday, and 5 prior to that. It is difficult to establish how many people have suffered injuries, but credible information indicates at a minimum that hundreds have been wounded during protests.
Human rights advocates further expressed disapproval over military attacks on medical staff and ambulances that are on ground to attend to the injured. As the tension continues, at least 29 journalists have been reportedly arrested, and 8 of them are charged with hatred for government, attending unlawful assembly, among others.
Since the 1st of February, over 1,700 people have been arbitrarily detained and arrested. However, the actual number of those detained is also likely to be much higher. In many instances, soldiers and police are reported to be conducting door-to-door searches and detaining people. The family of one community leader in Yangon said that he had not been heard from since he was taken by soldiers from his home in the middle of the night on the 1st of February. UN human rights staff have received numerous similar accounts.
Myanmar has been under the firm grips of the military since they took power in a coup last month. Several elected officials, including the leader of the National League for Democracy Party, Aung San Suu, were placed under arrest by the army, alleging corruption in the November legislative elections last year. However, the UN Commissioner for Human Rights is calling on individuals and groups with information and influence to support international efforts to hold military leaders accountable for the serious human rights violations that have been committed both now and in the past, adding that it is high time the table turned towards justice and end the military stranglehold over democracy in Myanmar. For iAfrica TV, this is Esa Janko.
UN urges military in Myanmar to halt crackdown on peaceful protesters. Well, viewers, that was all from me and the rest of the crew on The World Today. Do stay with us as Gambia 24 is up next with Mariama Cham at 19:30 GMT. Thanks for watching and bye for now.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape